Today we are focused on agent and broker-dealer registration requirements for the Series 65 and Series 66 exams. Under the Uniform Securities Act, an agent is defined as any individual who represents a broker-dealer or an issuer in effecting or attempting to effect purchases or sales of securities. The key here is that an agent is always a natural person, a human being, not a firm. This individual must be registered in any state where they conduct business. Unless an exemption applies, a critical distinction the exam will test is the difference between representing a broker-dealer versus representing an issuer. If you represent a broker-dealer and are involved in securities transactions, you must register as an agent. The only narrow exception is for officers or directors who have no involvement with customers or sales. However, if you represent an issuer, there are specific exclusions from the definition of an agent. You are not considered an agent if you represent an issuer in transactions involving certain exempt securities, like those issued by the U.S. government or municipalities. You are also excluded if you are involved in certain exempt transactions, such as private placements or transactions with existing employees, partners, or directors of the issuer, provided no commission is paid for soliciting those individuals. Be careful with exam questions that blur these lines. For instance, an individual selling municipal bonds for a broker-dealer must register, but an employee of the municipality selling those same bonds directly to the public may be excluded. The term associated person is broader than agent. An associated person includes anyone under the control of a broker-dealer, which covers registered representatives, principals, officers, and even some clerical staff. However, for exam purposes, know that clerical and ministerial staff who do not engage in or attempt to engage in securities transactions are not required to be registered as agents. If a secretary starts taking customer orders, they have crossed the line and must be registered. Now let's turn to broker-dealer registration. A broker-dealer must register with a state if it has a place of business in that state or if it has even one retail client residing in the state. There's no de minimis exemption for broker-dealers like there is for investment advisors. However, a broker-dealer can avoid state registration if it has no office in the state and its clients are exclusively institutions, such as banks, insurance companies, and other broker-dealers. This is a frequent exam trap. A BD in California with no office in Nevada can do business with a Nevada-based insurance company without registering in Nevada. But if that same BD has one retail client who lives in Nevada, registration is required. Another common scenario tested is the snowbird or vacation exemption. A broker-dealer is not required to register in a state if it's dealing with an existing client who is temporarily in that state, for instance, on vacation for less than 30 days. Finally, let's cover termination. When a registered agent terminates their employment, the firm must file a Form U-5 with the Central Registration Depository, or CRD, within 30 days of the termination date. This is a critical timeframe to remember. The firm is also required to provide a copy of the Form U-5 to the departing individual within that same 30-day period. A common exam question will test who's responsible for filing the U-5. It's the firm, not the individual. The state administrator retains jurisdiction over the individual for 2 years after the termination, meaning they can still initiate disciplinary actions. Here's a mnemonic to help you remember the key exclusions for an individual representing an issuer. I sell exempt securities to employees. I for issuer, sell exempt securities, reminds you of exempt securities like government bonds, and to employees helps you recall transactions with existing employees where no commission is paid. This shortcut can help you quickly identify situations where an individual does not meet the legal definition of an agent and therefore doesn't need to register. For free practice questions, AI-powered explanations, and more exam prep tools, visit openexamprep.com. That's openexamprep, all one word, .com.